A legendary weekend in the Lou. PGA Tour champions compete in the Stifel Charity Classic, presented by Compliance Solutions, September 4th through 7th, and COAR. Perform live with your Friday ticket. Visit StifelCharityClassic.com today.
Good evening and welcome into Cards Central Postgame on STL Sports Central. St. Louis, 8-2 losers tonight against the San Francisco Giants. I'm Ethan Hannaford. He is Chris Pelikan, and as mentioned, this is the Cards Central Postgame show on STL Sports Central. All of our content here on STL Sports Central is presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Chris, rough one tonight on a Friday night. The start of Hall of Fame weekend. You're honoring the 1985 team tonight. You would have liked for the Redbirds to have a little bit of a better showing. Unfortunately, you didn't really get it anywhere tonight. The offense was non-existent, with the first hit coming in the fifth inning, I believe. The bullpen was quiet. Michael McGreevy had a disappointing outing. Felt like really nothing went right tonight for St. Louis.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I mean, nothing went well tonight for the team. I think what's a little bit disappointing is even I guess the most optimistic Cardinal fan probably could have said, look, they put themselves in position here where they've got a team that's right in front of them in the wild card standings. You sweep this thing, you maybe get a little bit of luck from what's happening in the rest of the wild card chase, and you got a shot. And so technically maybe this was the first game that mattered somewhat in a little bit of time, and they really go out and lay a huge egg in this thing. Michael McGreevy's a guy who, as of a month ago, I had penciled into the rotation back end, and again, it's not like, one night is going to make a difference in this thing, but I mean, this is going to be the problem with McGreevy, right? He's a guy who's going to have contact. The question is the contact going to be hard or is it not going to be hard? And when you see 2 home runs in the first inning, you realize maybe his stuff's up tonight. And again, it's this guy who's shown a lot of promise throughout the year. Again, you don't pull it away and say, one bad start doesn't make an entire season. But, this was one that I think that could have been the start of a little bit of momentum for this team. The Giants are obviously playing very well right now. But end of the day, obviously a game that maybe meant something came back with a really, really poor effort. And you didn't get much of an outing from McGreevy, who, is a guy that you want to count on for next year. But I mean, again, tonight really didn't give the team a chance to win. So disappointing in pretty much every facet there can be. So.
Yeah, you mentioned Michael McGreevy, and you said you want to have him penciled in for 2026. Correct me if I'm wrong. It felt like there was a little bit of hesitancy there for a moment. I'm curious, where are you at right now overall on Michael McGreevy? How long have we had now? Probably close to 2 months, 6 weeks of him being a full-time starting pitcher in the majors. What has been your takeaway of the experience that you have seen so far from Michael McGreevy as a full-time pitcher in the major leagues?
I mean, I think more good than bad. But we look at where he's at today, and he's 6-3 with this team, but the ERA is 4.68. He's a guy who, and I think you and I talked about this, but we look back at, 2 months, and I felt really good about saying the back 3 of the rotation for 26 was Liberatore, Pellante, and McGreevy. And I thought that was a pretty decent back end of a rotation. And, I think since that time, I mean, all of them have given us reason to sit there and say, should we mark them down in pen versus pencil for that rotation? And I don't know that we've gotten that, again. So no one has, these guys who I thought put themselves in good position for next year, the position's not as good now. And, if you ask me right now, I still think that we've seen more good than bad out of McGreevy Again, and he's a guy too who obviously is on the front end of a contract life in terms of, just service time. So he'll obviously be very reasonably priced. So again, I still feel like McGreevy is a guy who you want to pencil in for 26 at this point. But having said that too, you just don't want to see outings like this, right? Where the 4 inning, 6 run variety where he's given up hard contact the whole time. I mean, this was probably his worst outing with the team. And again, so hopefully this is just the byproduct of being off a little bit for the night versus, a team like the Giants who are really playing very well at this point in time. So, you chalk this up to a bad one-off, but again, it's not like any of the 3 guys I just mentioned. And truth be told, even Sonny Gray, who's, obviously going to be here next year, unless they figure out a way to move him and he decides he wants to be moved. But like I said, nobody in this rotation has done much over the course of the last couple months to sit there and say, I feel fantastic about what I've got with these guys moving forward. So again, McGreevy, not a good one tonight, but I still feel like he's done enough to feel good about going into 26 as part of a 5-man group.
Professional troll man Aaron Dodson actually commenting something that I think is interesting. I want to discuss, saying honestly, I think we have one pitcher for next year, and it brings up, I think, a fair question as to how do fans feel about this pitching staff the Cardinals have now, knowing that Michaelis will be gone. I would say it's at least probably 50-50 now that Sonny Gray's here next year. So you're looking at 3 guys right now that are going to be here likely next year. Of those 3, I'm curious, and maybe just overall, maybe there's other guys you're looking at in the organization. Out of what the Cardinals have right now, how many of, I'll just say those 3 are in the organization? And if so, are the Cardinals filling in any of those spots with people that are in organization right now as well? I personally, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts in the chat. So be sure to share your thoughts. You guys are doing a great job with that already. I have a hard time believing that the Cardinals are going to be able to bring in enough compelling that is going to be better than Matthew Liberatore and Michael McGreevy. I think Michael McGreevy has shown a lot of really encouraging signs. As you said, there's been a lot more good than bad. This guy's super young in his major league career. He's gonna go through some bumps along the way. 2026, there's going to be some bumps for Michael McGreevy. All right, he was never going to be this what you saw from him when he was kind of making those spot starts and most of them looked really good. He was never going to be that. Okay, he was never going to be that every single major league start. Matthew Liberatore, I thought, showed a lot of what the ceiling can be early in the season. The big question for him, right, is going to be, can he extend out where that ceiling was early in the year? How long can you put off where that fatigue hits and starts to hit? I am hopeful / confident, I think, that Matthew Liberatore is going to be able to, with an entire offseason that he knows he's going to be a starting pitcher going into, plan and prepare his body for the wear and tear that is going to come with being a starting pitcher for a full season. Now, that doesn't guarantee anything, but I have to imagine that having a full season, knowing you're going to be a starter, he and the Cardinals coaching staff are going to be able to specifically have a plan of attack for how to take care of his body over a full 162. The big question, right, is Andre Pallante. It has been an absolute disaster over the past, in large part 2 months now. Some would argue far longer than that, but it's gotten, I think, even a level or 2 worse in the last couple of months. He's the question mark, right? He's the one that you're like, man, you're not really sure because you've seen what it looks like when it can be good. And when it is good, then, yeah, he can be 5 material. No doubt about that in my mind. The problem is that you haven't seen that Andre Pallante consistently in a while.
Yep.
And the question is, are you going to be able to get that back? There's other names. There's some comments about Kyle Leahy. There's some intrigue around him. I would be shocked if the Cardinals are not if Kyle Leahy is not reporting to spring training 2026 reporting as a starting pitcher. Doesn't mean he's going to be a guaranteed full-time starting pitcher in the rotation for all of 2026, but I bet that they are going to be ramping him up this offseason and then come February and March, as if he's going to be getting some starts in spring training and seeing what they can do with him. Earlier, so let's see, I think it was Samuel. Yeah, Samuel said, we will trade away talent for talent. And I agree that this will happen to a certain extent. We know that the Cardinals do have surplus, Chris. We know that there are log jams that will be cleared up to a certain extent. My thought is, and this is something that we have done in St. Louis for a long time. We know that the front office has done, and to a certain extent, every fan base does it. And that's overvalue what you have.
Sure.
My question is what are the Cardinals going to be able to get for their talent that they're going to be shipping out? Are they going to be able to get starting pitching that you feel is going to be able to be planted immediately into the rotation, ready to be pitching at the major league level? I honestly have zero idea. In large part, it's going to depend on which direction the Cardinals will like to go. I think there's a higher likelihood if you trade away Brendan Donovan that you could maybe get that than if you trade away Lars Nootbaar and Jordan Walker. So a lot of it is what direction does Heimblum and company elect to go in come the offseason. But I don't know if it's necessarily a guarantee that the talent that you trade away is going to get you talent that's going to be major league starting pitching ready. We know how coveted young starting pitching is in Major League Baseball. And just to assume that the Cardinals are going to get that in return, I think is a little bit much, in my personal opinion.
Well, and I think, Ethan, you're correct that very few teams are going to be willing to trade major league ready pitching, pre-arbitration guys, right? Like you won't see that. The trade market for the Cardinals is going to be in the guys who teams do not want to pay within a year or two. That's where the team is going to have to find talent. And then the question becomes, is that where the Cardinals should shop, right? Like, I mean, if you look at, for instance, the Marlins have obviously Sandy Alcantara's back end of a deal. He's got another year left. Is that a guy that you go fishing with? Pardon the pun. Tampa's got two guys in Shane Baz and Shane McClanahan who are arbitration guys who've had some injuries issues, big talent. They've been great in limited, action, but they're guys who are going to be due to be paid within 2 or 3 years. Those are that in my mind, that's where the Cardinals need to be finding talent. You are not finding guys in the same contract cycle as McGreevy, right? Who's first year, 5 years of team control type stuff. Those guys aren't going to exist. You have to develop those guys. But there are going to be guys who are available who teams just know they won't resign. And so that's when you can trade a Lars Nootbaar, or you could trade a Nolan Gorman, somebody along those lines. You could trade a Brendan Donovan if you wanted, for guys in that sort of area, because, again, they're available at that point in time because the team doesn't want to pay them. I just think that to expect to trade Jordan Walker and get, somebody who's first or second year, in their career, no, you won't see anything along those lines. And then it comes down to free agency. And obviously you aren't going to go out, and I don't see them spending a bunch of money on Zach Gallen or someone along those lines. Right. But there's going to be a whole bunch of guys who are maybe coming off down years, project guys. I mean, this is Heimblum's charge at this point in time. You basically have it threefold. What does this team really have? And there's days of the week where I think you could sit there and make a case that they have 3 to 4 guys penciled in for next year that give you a shot, that with a good off season and maybe a little bit tweaking here and there. And then there's other days where you sit there and say, I don't even know if there's one, right? Like, I mean, and so he's got to assess what they've got. A, B, he's got to see what they've got in the minors, right? Is Quinn Matthews really close, right? Early in the year, he looked nowhere near close to being major league ready. And now down the stretch, he seems to have found his sea legs, so to speak, and looks really good, and probably somebody who might warrant a start or two down the stretch. Liam Doyle is going to be a fast riser. He's just one of these guys who probably could pitch out of the bullpen today. So what's his timeline before he's ready? And then after that, it is what really is available this offseason. And I don't think, like I said, that you're going to run into anybody who's going to fit onto that early end of the contract, young status type deal. You're going to find guys who teams are trying to get rid of because they don't want to pay them, or you're going to be able to find starters in free agency who certainly are not going to be multi-year guys, probably 1-year guys coming off of rough seasons and that sort of thing. So, Bloom's got a ton to think about. And I think the truth or the answer is somewhere in the middle of all of it. I think that he should go and make a trade for one of these guys who's a free agent in 2 years, because you can get them. The price will be lower based on their status. I think they should take a flyer on somebody in free agency who maybe is coming off a down year, looking to rebuild their status, that sort of thing. The one thing we know they won't do is long-term big dollars, and that's fine, and that's smart. But bring 7 starters or 8 starters to spring training and see what happens. Let it play out. Because again, to your point, I feel significantly less confident with what this team has today than I did 2 months ago. And, so I think at the bare minimum, Bloom needs to shake it up with competition in whatever format that looks. But I mean, they've got to increase their talent level. There's no two ways about it. And there's a lot of ways to do it. That's the good news. I just don't know whether they will. Because as you and I have talked about too, I still worry that they think 26 is a throwaway year because 27 is a work stoppage. And so, if we run into that, then we are 3 years away from anything that resembles fun baseball in this city. And that's a terrible thought.
I think throwaway is, I don't think that's the word that the organization would use, but
runway.
I'm tired of that word, but I think that it's closer. 2026 is not going to be a year where they're actively trying to compete for a World Series, because they know that they're not there yet. They know that the process is not there yet. There's too much work to be done for them to get to that point. It is not going to all be accomplished in one off season because of the work stoppage. It will end up being longer, I think. As a result, unfortunately, it's just too much, and these prospects that you've been starting to develop on, they're going to need more time, right? And some of this is going to be based around the speed in which some of these young pitching prospects are going to be able to start making impact for you, and things along that line, right? I do have to bring up Samuel's comment real quick. Eric Fetty might be out there.
He's free. He's available. I think they could probably lure him back.
He is Chris Pelikan. I'm Ethan Hannaford. This is Cards Central Postgame on STL Sports Central. And as always, we and all of our content here on STL Sports Central is presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. And Missouri, it's time to get ready. The wait is almost over. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is coming soon to the Show Me State, and you can sign up today. New Missouri customers can get $300 in bonus bets when we launch on December 1st. Download now and place a $5 bet when we go live. DraftKings Sportsbook brings everything you need to elevate your game day, including live in-game betting, lightning fast payouts, and endless ways to get in on the action, all right from your phone. And when we officially go live in Missouri, you'll be betting with the Sportsbook app, trusted by millions. Safe, secure, and has fast money withdrawal. Sounds like a pretty good deal to me. Download the DraftKings download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code STL Sports to grab $300 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet when we go live December 1st. That's code STL Sports, all caps, STL Sports, in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus. Physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Excludes customers who redeem pre-launch sign-up offer. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. He is Chris Pelikan. I'm Ethan Hannaford. This is Card Central Postgame. Oh, where do we want to take this now, Chris? Anything specifically that you want to hit on? I know we talked a little bit about Michael McGreevy. The bullpen was quiet tonight. Ivan Herrera, really the lone bright spot tonight in the office. How about this? Let's go ahead. Speaking of offense, let's talk about this funky freaking lineup that we had tonight because it was goofy. First off, I'll say this to Cardinals social media admins. The lineup presentation tonight for the 85 reunion, wow, beautiful. Well done. But the lineup itself had me the graphic was so nice that I didn't even look at the lineup at first. And then I started seeing comments about how goofy the lineup was. And then I saw Nolan Gorman was playing first base tonight. And I was like, what's going on? What are we doing here? So if you missed it, the lineup tonight was as follows. Lars Nootbaar was in left field, followed by Ivan Herrera, who DH'd. Nolan Gorman batted third and played first base. Mason Wynn batted cleanup at shortstop. He was followed by the brand new babyface Jimmy Crooks, who was the catcher. I say babyface just because he's new to the league. He's not actually a babyface. Thomas Ajaysi was at third, followed by Jordan Walker in right, Victor Scott II in center, and Jose Fermin at second base. I know the Cardinals are banged up right now. They got some pieces down. Wilson Contreras, the 4-game suspension began tonight. It was downgraded by the MLB following his appeal. Went from 6 to 4 games. But, boy, I mean, how telling is this lineup of where things are right now?
Yeah, and I mean, like, again, this kind of was a game that mattered. I mean, I don't really know if that's the best way to put it, but, you sort of had a team in front of you in the standings. Could you make a statement? They'd been playing good baseball, blah, blah, blah. And then this is the lineup that you trot out there. So, again, yeah, I mean, I don't know what to make of it. Do we read much into the Gorman at first base thing? I'm a little surprised that Herrera is not the guy taking.
I was too.
Taking first base at this point in time, just because I tend to think that's where he lands long term. And I don't know why they didn't move in that direction. Yeah, Mason Wynn in cleanup is a very interesting choice. He's had some good moments this year, but let
me ask you this: what would, if this was your 9? What would you have constructed differently? Would you have flipped Herrera and batted him 4 and maybe Win at 2? That's what I would have done personally.
Yeah, you do that. Theoretically, Jordan Walker doesn't deserve anything, but he's a better profile hitter than Jimmy Crooks, and he's better than Sajaysi and that sort of thing in terms of what he might offer. I mean, Nootbaar, I thought we kind of gave up on him in the leadoff spot. He had settled in nicely at some point in the 5 hole this year. Probably would have had him farther down. You got to put some element of thunder in the middle of the lineup, and Jimmy Crooks and Mason Wynn, not sort of the thunder I think that teams around baseball are quaking at when they look at that. So strange night overall, result not strange based on what we saw from this lineup. And again, when your starting pitcher gives up 6 runs in 4 innings, and they were not scattered, they were the Giants I think had a season high 18 hits tonight. So this was not a pitching staff that was missing bats in any way, shape, or form tonight. So yeah, again, I mean, just bad on pretty much every front with the team tonight. And, I guess maybe we can sit there and say, hey, Graceffo gave you 2 innings of scoreless relief, but he also gave up 3 hits. And, Ryan Fernandez, I don't know how much longer that experiment lasts because he just does not miss bats at this point in time in his career. But, again, there really was very little good to take from this thing. And it makes you feel, you just have those nights where you just don't feel good about the future of this team. And not tonight was one of them without any doubt.
He's Chris Pelikan. I am Ethan Hannaford. This is the Cards Central Postgame Show on STL Sports Central. Be sure to like and subscribe to the content here on STL Sports Central's YouTube channel if you are not. Because, listen, there is constant content being put out quite literally every single day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And when you are liking and subscribing, it helps us out, but it also allows for you guys to be staying in the know and being up to date on all things STL sports. Earlier, it was asked, I believe, by Rob, if I will be doing hockey streams on games after this year. I will be indeed. I'll be back on Blues postgame shows, and super excited for that because Blues season is right around the corner. And Chris, it will be refreshing to have a new sport that there's a little bit more optimism around right now from the fan base. Can we agree on that?
I think we can agree on that. Definitely playing the string out here, bud. We got 3 more weeks of Cardinal postgame shows. We'll miss it when it's gone, but again, I mean, I'd like to be bullish in the idea that this offseason will be different.
Agreed.
And we have agreed on the fact that it doesn't, this doesn't require a big influx in payroll. So it's not when we criticize the DeWitts and Hein Bloom moving forward, let's not make it just because they're not spending more money, because clearly there is less money coming in. At the end of the day, this is a business. There's no two ways about that, but it's not required to spend more money to make this team better. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
This was the comment I was waiting for, Chris, was the "I won't miss it" comment. That's exactly what I was waiting for. It didn't take very long, but yeah, no, you make a good point, right? Is that, and this has been something I feel like I've been trying to hit on, is that you could spend all the money that you want. Spending money has not been the issue for the Cardinals in the past handful of years. They significantly dropped back on the payroll this season, but prior to that, they had still consistently been in the top half of baseball when it came to spending. Spending's never been the issue. The problem is that the DNA, right, the heartbeat of what made the Cardinals tick and successful, that is what was lost, and they tried to overcompensate by spending more money or on the free agent market to cover some of that up. And the Cardinals, as we know, just cannot compete with those big market teams. You are never going to be able to flourish at the top of the free agent market. And as a result, we've seen them now in the spot that they are, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's it. And again, they have not drafted and developed as well as they used to. No two ways about that. But like you and I have talked about ad nauseum, this team changed when John Mozeliak decided to stop acquiring players via trade and started going, instead of acquiring guys who were 26 and 27, he starts acquiring guys who are 31 and 32. And that makes a difference. The team got old and it got less talented in a hurry. And it's because Mo got trigger shy, right? He was no longer able to pull the trigger after he lost the Ozuna trade, after he lost the Randy Arozarena trade. And at that point in time, he just decided, I can't continue to take risks on these arbitration eligible guys, when the truth is those are the ones who are going to make the difference. And so I hope the lesson's been learned. I don't know if it has been, but you cannot solve your team's problems via free agency. All you are doing is overpaying for declining assets. That's just what it is, with very rare exceptions. There are certainly going to be the Juan Sotos of the world and the Bryce Harpers and, those sort of guys. But by and large, you are not improving your team for the long term by doing it via free agency, which this team tried to do for the last several years. And this is why we are in the situation we're in right now. So hopefully the mindset has changed. Hopefully Hein Bloom has a different course. I don't think full rebuild, which I keep hearing those terms, is the right way to go, because
not necessary.
It's not necessary. And it's also, it's not proven to work. Okay. Like, I know the Astros did really well with quote unquote full rebuild, but the whole idea of tanking doesn't really work anymore. You can't do it based on the sort of the rules that Major League Baseball's, thrown in there in terms of year after year. So you've got to come up with a different way to do this. And I just think it's important that they broaden their horizons a bit and start looking for talent, be a little more critical of their own talent, and be a little more open to talent that's outside of the organization, as a way to create a different mix, because what they've got now hasn't worked. The group they have now isn't working, and they need to change it almost for the sake of change at this point in time. But do it in a responsible way. Do it in a way where again, I mean, we've talked about this before, but I look at a guy like Adley Rutschman in Baltimore, who clearly is probably a trade candidate after the team gives an 8-year contract to their catcher of the future. Rutschman's coming off of 2 or 3 bad years in a row, but this is a guy who was a 1-1 at one point in time, who hits in a very different category than most catchers. Maybe the change of scenery would do him a ton of good. Is this a guy you take the sort of risk on? And I say absolutely. There's guys like that littered all over the place, and this team needs to be a little bit more bold and figure out who are the guys that are good bounce back candidates who are still in their 20s that we can build around moving forward. So, that's Hein Bloom's charge at this point in time. And it's not picking through the crumbs of what this team has right now and trying to decide, you talked about Pelikan, and he's just a good example of a guy that might be an easy fallback because the front office can say, well, he showed some really good things, which is true. The problem is that the good things have been so far outweighed by the bad things for such a long time that, I think the thought process, he's been figured out to a degree by baseball, is not that far out of the realm of possibility. So I just think they just need to infuse talent in a lot of different ways and sort of see where that leads and go into spring training with a bunch of open jobs and, let's go from there. Because again, this idea that everybody deserves a shot, the runway thing, again, we're done talking about it, but it just is not working for this team. And I think they have the possibility of doing long-term damage to this fan base. If 26 is a give up, if 27 is a strike year, we're in a bad spot. And I just think it's not necessary. So like you said, I really hope that the message of this year's reduction in attendance has been heard by ownership, and that Chaim Bloom is told to start getting creative with rebuilding this roster.
Cardinals 8-2 losers tonight against the San Francisco Giants, and this is the Cards Central Postgame Show on STL Sports Central. Reminder that the Cards Central Postgame Show is brought to you in part by the Legal Buddy app. Life happens fast. 1 minute you're driving home, the next flashing lights are in your rear view. I have been a victim of this time too many, and when trouble knocks, answer with confidence. With the Legal Buddy app, you can connect to a local attorney in seconds, whether it's a DWI, car accident, criminal charge, or traffic ticket. Download the Legal Buddy app today at legalbuddyapp.com. Register and use code LEGAL, L-E-G-A-L, to enter for a chance to win a $250 Amazon gift card. Always on your side. That's the Legal Buddy app. Before we go ahead and wrap up, let's just take a quick look at tomorrow's game. Cardinals and Giants, game number 2 of the series. Andre Pelikan heading out on the bump for the Redbirds, and hopefully an opportunity for him to be able to make some sort of ground in the right direction, build in any sort of way, because it feels like that's where you're at with him right now. Is can we get any sort of momentum going into the offseason because of how rough it has been? He'll be facing off against the future Hall of Famer Justin Verlander, who is 3-10 with a 4.29 ERA on the season. And that game, Saturday night game for you, 6:15 first pitch from Busch Stadium, a Hall of Fame weekend at the ballpark, as the late Walt Jocketty, Edgar Renteria, and the one and only Al Hrabosky will all be getting inducted into the Cardinals Hall of Fame tomorrow afternoon, I believe at 3 o'clock. I believe it'll be broadcast on FanDuel Sports Midwest as well. All of those three very well deserving, all three big parts of Cardinal history, and a more fond time in Cardinal history as well. A time that, hopefully the Cardinals are able to replicate here, and that process can continue getting moved forward upon in 2026 and the years to come. Any final thoughts here before we wrap tonight, Chris?
I think, you talk about Walt Jocketty going in, and Walt Jocketty was sort of the original, Maverick GM with this, the guy was somebody who was always intent on winning, and that's why he'll be remembered as fondly as he was in this city. He made trade after trade after trade that led to great things. So, again, I mean, great weekend to honor a great man and a great executive. Let's hope the legacy sort of spills out a little bit there, and that the DeWitts remember what it was like when they had a guy like Walt Jocketty, pulling the trigger on the deals that made this team a perennial contender for a lot of years. So, fun weekend to honor some really, really great former Cardinals, and, see Justin Verlander pitch, right? I don't know how much longer he's got. They were talking about whether or not he gets to 300 wins tonight. I heard that he's got 35 more to go. I just don't know if that's going to happen with Justin Verlander, but regardless, like you said, surefire first ballot Hall of Famer, a true professional, one of the greats to ever do it. So, he's certainly not the same version now that he used to be, but, still one of those things that might be cool to say you saw Verlander pitch at one point in time. So, good reason to be down at the park tomorrow.
Well said. He is Chris Pelikan. I am Ethan Hannaford. This has been the Cards Central postgame show on STL Sports Central. Plenty of shows going on tomorrow. Cards Central 365 will have the post-game show tomorrow night. You got Mizzou, Illini football, St. Louis City. This is the place for all of it right here on STL Sports Central. We will see you tomorrow.